Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about business-to-business sales as it pertains to using PPC ads to drive your business. Now, obviously if you run a B2B style business, you already kind of know there's two basic ways at this point in time, 2021 and beyond, that you can actually go to making a fortune in your business. Well, excluding, of course, through referrals, which is just a side byproduct. But to get referrals, you got to get business starting out, and it's a little hard to grow your business with referrals because people that are smaller than the clients that you probably want are the ones that get referred. Just a little side tip, if you didn't come to the conclusion yet. Certainly seems to be true in any case of B2B, sales that I've seen it. So you got to find new clients, and there's a couple different ways that you could do that. Ideally, certain size clients that you ultimately know that you could sell to and that you want and that are profitable, right? So the more drilled down you could make things, the better. You could either pretty much just run PPC ads, find people online as they're searching, or just in general, or you could make a compiled list and target them via direct mail or cold calling or cold emailing. So basically either you reach out to them, i.e. a lot of people just call that outbound, or you could do inbound through running ads, right? And so, by the way, before you get to the end of the video, you'll realize that inbound and outbound it's been thought of as two different silos that shouldn't be, those two silos aren't as defined and narrow and as separate as you probably think they are due to common knowledge and not a lot of people knowing the PPC strategies that you could use that work good for B2B in a lot of cases, which is good for you because you're going to know them, and none of your competitors probably do, of course, because this is not common knowledge. So in any case, if you go to the PPC route, and first of all, by the way, before I start as well, I don't tell anybody in the B2B business to do one or the other. You should do everything that works. The worst number in business, as I always have said, is one. In case think even with PPC, as rock solid as the results are, when you create a funnel that works, you never know. So you should do both. But then again, going back to what I was saying a little bit ago, they aren't as separate as you think. One can be used to drive the other, of course. And of course, you do the PPC. It'll also help you with any outbound that you're doing technically, and I'll get into that. So anyway, but for the most part, this is going to cover me being a 15-year PPC expert that has worked on hundreds and hundreds of campaigns, 100 plus in the B2B space before, have planned those out. How I actually come to the conclusion as to how to make money, i.e. profit, running B2B campaigns, not just making money, but actually driving profitable campaigns that pay for themselves. So you're getting a 10-to-1 return on your money, ultimately, and how you can be able to do that for yourself and the general process that I go through from start to finish to be able to do that. I won't get into the exact detail and the actual strategies because I have other videos on how to actually put the physical nuts and bolts of these things together, but this gives you the general strategies that I know work and the general process that you should go through in choosing which strategy is right for you. The main thing that you always got to keep in mind as I go through, before I get into my list here of typical B2B PPC strategies that I use, is that if your PPC strategy for your B2B business does not work right now, it's not that it doesn't work or can't work, it's just it hasn't worked for you only because it has not been drilled down enough yet for your business. Or in other words, there's PPC that'll work for you in your space. The only question is, can you narrow down your focus enough to where it will work? And obviously outbound is the same way. There's some buyers where that'll work, but if you go too broad, you're not going to get ROI. So it's a matter of being able to use all the tools at your disposal to narrow down your targeting so that you can first identify, then ultimately attract that really narrow target within all the possible prospects in your space that it really is perfect for, not just sort of perfect, because that's where the ROI comes from. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that with your PPC ads, which I'll just get into describing. But also before that, one thing that you should also do is to find an actual goal that's going to work for you on your campaign before you start advertising. A lot of people make this mistake. They'll start out trying to run ads. They won't know what numbers they need, and they'll get into it, and 6 months later in the process, they'll go, I wonder if this is worth my money and my time. That's wrong. That's a total wrong way about going into making any investment in marketing for your business, but especially this, given how measurable the PPC ads are. To not know what you need to have going into it, you're really putting yourself at a huge disadvantage unless you have just piles of money that is just on deck that you don't care if you lose or not, which I'm going to assume you don't have. That you want to be able to identify the cost per lead that you can afford to pay for and keep the campaign self-sustaining. Because everything about PPC, it's so much trouble, I should say hard work, to put together a sales funnel through running your PPC ad to the landing page and then converting people and doing the work that it does. At the end of the day, you don't want to do it unless you probably are getting like a 10-to-1 return on your money, or 20-to-1, regardless, whatever it is. You identify how many leads you need to make X number of sales, what your cost per deal is, lifetime value of a client or customer, work it back and find a cost per lead number that if you hit that cost per lead number, that you're going to be able to be profitable and self-sustain the campaign. So then you start on a small budget, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. You go till you hit those numbers, and then you start scaling it up. 99% of the profit you're going to make is after you hit your numbers and be able to scale the campaign up. So you just look at the initial money into it is just like an investment into really building yourself a multi-million-dollar a year ad campaign. If it costs you 20 grand in terms of time and effort and money to put together, it's really literally chicken scratches once it starts working, and that's what it's all about. And a lot of people I think that they fail because they don't understand that, and they just want to hurry up and make it work so they don't have to lose a lot of money. If you go in with that attitude, it won't work because it's a lot. You have to be able to put together a better model than your competition has. And if you could see the competition's making money and their ad's been running for a while, they may not be making money, but at the same time, if they've been running ads for 3, 4, or 5 years, you don't want to go in and just say, well, it's working for them, therefore if I do anything it will work. No, your goal should be to outdo them, because if you do that, you're guaranteed to make money. Assuming they're making money, which if they're running their ads that long and they've actually spent more than a couple grand a month, probably making money, and then that'll ensure you will for sure make money. And with being able to basically see everything that they're doing, unlike direct mail or something, you can see the landing page that they're using and so on and so forth. So you just be able to figure out how to do it better. Anyway, you come up with a goal, cost per lead target for, start out with $1,000 a month budget, then optimize until you get that, and then scale up. Then all your money's on the back end. So anyway, with that said, I have the big question here. The reason why most people complain that B2B PPC ads don't work is because they don't see the big picture like I just described there. But also they don't set up tracking so they can track cost per lead. And of course they will track, if those leads are converting into sales and do some monitoring along those lines. But because the ROI isn't for a while and they don't run those numbers, they don't understand what a cost per lead that they have is it profitable or not, and so therefore they can't give it. We're talking about slim margins and really a small gap whether your campaign seems to be profitable or not. So you have to know those numbers going in, and then when they start out with a $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 a month budget, they don't give the proper amount of the advice I give you is to optimize it for 3 or 6 months until you hit your numbers. And even if you don't hit your numbers right away the first month, it's just a process of elimination. If you have your tracking set up, which I'm going to describe here in a moment, to narrow things down so that you do get the return and cost per lead that that it's going to be profitable later on down the line, so that you can scale the campaign up. And that's in general, people that do eventually make millions of dollars with their ad campaigns, that's what they're actually doing. So going back to what I was saying before, if it's not profitable now, you just need to narrow it down a little bit more. And with the tracking, it's extremely obvious how to narrow down your ads so they do become profitable, knowing what to do. Then you can do more of that, or you can try something else, go through the same process with that thing, and eventually you'll end up with your campaign that spends 50 grand a month and does generate $5 million a year in sales for you like clockwork, and just churns out profit month after month, very stable for the most part. Fluctuates throughout the year, but on a year-over-year basis, very stable. You could plan your whole business around that. So anyway, what I've done here is I put in descending order in terms of what stuff that you do, what I typically do, what I start out with, and usually is the most profitable, quick thing to do. And then if that doesn't work, what I do is I go on kind of the next thing. So I can describe in your case that starting budget, they'll be able to hit the numbers that you want to hit. What I recommend that you start out with, if you can do it, because it's easier. It's the main thing being easier, and then go down on the more creative stuff that you have to do to hit your numbers after that. So the first thing on the list here is, and what people have a problem with, so if you're running search campaigns starting out here, people don't make money from their ads or have the opportunity even after narrowing down their ads because keywords are too broad. You should, for the most part, and until you've made money with this, go after buying terms. Spend management service, spend management firm, not spend management, because that's an arbitrary term. And if you're going to pay 10, 20, 30 bucks for a click, you got to know that you got to give yourself the best chance possible to actually be paying for a quality person there. It's hard enough, again, to get somebody to respond at a high enough rate to hit your target cost per lead, to hit your target ROI that you want from the campaign, than to add in half or more of the traffic that you're paying for is just basically crap. And so I pretty much always go after just the buying terms like that, where they have to be using one word in there to indicate they're actually looking for business. That's a little secret that I have. Beyond that, if they're still not making money, they won't do any dual layer targeting. So one thing that you could do with Google now, as well as on Bing, if you run your ads there, is actually only target companies of a certain size. It's in you can Google it. It's in the advanced targeting settings, but if you got to have companies of 1,000 or more employees, which I've had it before. If you don't have that, you're going to get a bunch of the small companies. It's never going to be able to give you a chance to be profitable, and so therefore you should look at that, or figure out what's that one thing that every client needs to be that most people aren't, and then add that as a secondary way that you filter down the buying terms that you filter down to here in the first step to get your campaign to work. But if that doesn't work going down the list, you do offline conversion tracking. Now, if you don't know what that is, you can Google it again. But essentially all it is you're identifying the people that come through as leads. Did they purchase? And then when they purchase, or once you know what the quality of the lead is, if you score it between 1 and 10 because they don't purchase for a while, or if you have a contract, you could take the value of the contract. You can import that into your Google or Bing account and then see down to the device level, what age they are, what company size they are, if you want to do that, what state they're from, where the sale came from, and where you were able to get over time. Once you have accumulated enough data, you actually are getting the 10 or 20 to 1 return that you're looking for, so that you can just weed out all the other stuff that doesn't give you that capability. So that's what you do if you're still not making money from the first two. Now, going down here the list further, if you aren't making money from that yet, people don't make money because there's no industry specialization on content. So I gave a couple of examples of how to do this. You can actually do this very well on Bing now. Bing is actually more profitable than Google in most cases, so I recommend going there if you're having trouble with Google. But you can, instead of having an ad that says spend management services like the example I gave before, you can have spend management services specializing in the manufacturing field. And actually Google does some degree where you could target people that are to be identified as coming from a certain industry as well. Not as good as Bing, but they'll both have this capability, so that you could target people who are from the manufacturing field with something that says you specialize in the manufacturing field, or you specialize in the oil and gas industry. And then what do you got to click on? If there's 4 ads to click on, you're going to click on the one that speaks to me individually, which is then going to cut your costs for that same traffic down to about half of what it started with. So that one little tweak can be all you need. Or in your ad, you can have seek case study from, and then insert a manufacturing company for the people that are actually from manufacturing companies. So anyway, it's not that hard to do. You just have to segment your campaigns, set up a campaign that's a mirror of the other last campaign, but then set up just for manufacturing that has an ad for related to that industry, and then a landing page that has a case study related to manufacturing on it. And then if you don't have a case study for everything, just go after the ones that you do have, starting out until you start making money. But if that doesn't work, going down the list here further, there's no dimension targeting. So going back to what I was saying before, you can see by default what you should have is conversion tracking that shows you what your cost per lead is. But you could see, just like the revenue tracking I was telling you about, what is producing a lead in terms of, did they search on mobile or desktop? Was it a male versus a female? Were they from Texas versus Georgia? And then assign what you do is you use a bid modification formula, which I have here, and you put in your target cost per lead that you're looking for here, and then whatever dimension you're on, it could be an individual keyword, your cost per lead the keyword has. You divide those by each other. You take it minus 1 times 100, and then you'll have the proper amount that you will be able to tell Google, or being you're willing to pay for that particular keyword, to then be able to provide the ROI or cost per lead that you're looking for on that individual keyword or on that individual age demographic or gender demographic. And there's a bunch of different ways to segment what you've done so that you get that. It might be half of the account is producing a 10-to-1 return, the other half is not. And you could just then tell Google you're willing to spend not zero, but less for the stuff that's not producing as well, and a little bit more than the stuff that's producing really good, a 20 or 30-to-1 return. So you're just redistributing your budget to what actually works. So if that doesn't work, going down our list here again, you could, if you have no competitor targeting. So and this gets into the display advertising. If the search campaigns won't work for you, maybe what you sell is just too obscure, you can get into display. Basically banner ads and display could be on Facebook, could be on LinkedIn, it could be on Google's display network where you're on CNN.com, or basically any website that has banner advertising on it, which is the Google display network. You could target through Google specifically all the people. You can make a custom intent audience with a list of all your direct competitors on it, and then target people based upon if they bid to or searched for one of your direct competitors in the last 30 days, and have your ad show up for them that tells them exactly what they get if they come to your site, and you got to be specific. We have a case study for you. We have a discount that reason for you to switch. Or if you're considering, some people that go to go to your competitors' sites, will be in the process of buying. And so therefore you could give them a specific reason as to check you out as a potential option. That's the whole idea behind that. But those campaigns work extremely good if you can't find a keyword that gets you a profitable customer. Just target people who are going into the competitor already. It's a very lucrative option for B2B companies who can't make the search campaigns work by default. But beyond that, if you can't make that work, which is where I recommend you start out with the display advertising, you go after people, you create a manual list. So for the outbound, if you have an outbound list, you can upload that email list to AdRoll, you can upload that email list to Facebook, and you can have a banner ad again show up just for those people, so that if people respond from that ad, they're for sure qualified, or at least in the target demographic that you need for them to be qualified, assuming that up here you're not getting qualified people. And then you can do the same things, say the same things that you would say to somebody considering the competitor or using the competitor to get them to come through you. Beyond that, you can, if that doesn't work for you, you can attempt to use a compile list for targeting. So a compile list would be through a company like Nextmark. You can actually find data brokers, and Nextmark may not be an appropriate option for you, but there's data brokers out there who has a list. If, let's say you want to target just CFOs, for example, they have compile lists with every CFO, whereas if you do manual list creation, the benefit of the compile list is you not very often can find a CFO at a company. You may be able to find the CIO in a certain case, or the CEO, but you can find lists of just 10,000 CFOs and then you can filter that down to certain size of company. That the CFO works at a certain size company, and then the rest you don't want, and then you can rent that list from the data broker and then use that again through ad roll, uploading your list to there, or through Facebook, and then have an ad that just shows up just for the CFOs if you have to sell to the CFO or HR manager or what have you, whatever for your industry. Beyond that, if that still won't work for you on the display ad side, you can also go after and use what are called purchase lists. So going back to our previous example, you go to the data broker and you say, I want all these CFOs, or to give you a better example, I want purchasing managers at manufacturing companies. You can drill down on 2 different levels like that, but you can also drill down on a 3rd level, by the way, which may not leave you with a really huge list, but if you have trouble making an ROI, start here again. You can start, once you start making money and things are feeding into itself, it's much easier to be able to start expanding from there versus starting out shooting for the moon and then not getting the ROI that you want and running out of money early. But you could go after purchasing managers who made a purchase of a lighting system in the last 90 days, whereas you sell them, floor paint. And so that person that bought in the recent past is a lot more statistically likely in that case to buy lights because they're in a buying mode. They have budget that opened up, whatever it is. And this may not be a great example for that industry, but it gives you the general idea in that you can deal with people that clearly have free money to spend, are of the certain type and size of company that you want to target and the actual decision maker within the company. But those lists, get to be quite a bit more expensive than just the list of purchasing managers by itself, for instance, and that they charge you automatically normally more to know that person had their wallet open, if you will, in the recent past. And if you wanted to know that they purchased in the last 30 days, it's even more expensive, so on and so forth. The more tighter a list and more data that you're getting about the list you're purchasing, generally the more it is. But anyway, that will generally, if you drill all the way down to that level to find like your perfect prospect and then have your banner ad show up for them and have something that just absolutely cannot resist, especially if you have something, a manufacturing case study for somebody who is in the manufacturing industry and the exact, decision maker that you want, and know that person's made a purchase in the last 30 days, it gets pretty hard not to make this display advertising work at that point in time. So you can start there if you want, work up, but go through this list. If you're not able to make display advertising work for yourself, or maybe you want to expand what you're doing and search ads don't only get you so far because there's only so much search volume, and want to try display, that's the kind of stuff that works for B2B. But in general, wrapping all this up, that's because very few people are going to go and intelligently think about their PPC ads this way, much like they may think about their outbound. They complain that B2B PPC just doesn't work. And my answer in response to all of that is it does work. You just got to be able to, know a little bit of the secrets of the trade, but you also, have to be willing to put the work in to drill down what you're doing far enough, or give your stuff enough time to work so you have enough data so you can refine and get rid of the parts of what you did that didn't work so that the rest of what you had can survive and serve you long term. And if you have to spend a few $1,000s up front to get your ads working, it's worth it, because that campaign will probably end up delivering for the next 5 plus years for you, and what you spend up front to get it working is literally nothing. So if you look at it from that angle and you do some of the things that I figured out over the last 15 years to make things work, you're 99% sure you're going to be able to get something working on the PPC side for your B2B business. And if you would not, get back to me and I'll certainly be able to tell you what you may be doing wrong. Leave me a comment down below if that's the case for you. If you like this video, want some other PPC money-making strategies, I come out with a new video every day. So if you subscribe to this channel, I'll be able to share those with you so that you can learn from my 15 years of experience doing PPC. And certainly also can be able to go to guaranteedppc.com/blog if you want a little bit more detailed step-by-step instructions on how to set up some of the campaigns that I set up for our clients on the campaigns that we guarantee for our clients, and also have learned the ultimate best way to do things over the last 15 years to do stuff like this, as I mentioned in the video. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and good luck in setting up your B2B campaigns or improving your B2B campaigns for yourself there as well.